How should you be practicing your trumpet? I have 4 tips for you today. And the first one is this. You want to put a lot of days of practice together in a row, in succession. We're human. We're going to make mistakes. We're not going to be perfect. We're not going to practice every single day, but you want to practice more often than you don't. That'll relieve some pressure of feeling the need to practice each and every day. Personally, I like to take Sundays off from practicing. There is benefit from taking a rest, mentally and physically. So I like to practice 6 days a week. Now, I want to give you a good example. For all of my bowlers out there, are you a bowler? The scoring in bowling is kind of like practice, and I'll tell you what I mean. In the first frame of bowling, you have the potential for 30 points in that frame, but only if you get a strike in the first frame, and then another strike in the second frame, and then another strike in the third frame. And with bowling scoring, the other frames to come matter. The frames to come affect the previous frames. So I have a potential of 30 points in the first frame, but if I make a gutter ball in the second frame, that's out the window. But I still have an opportunity to make a spare and earn 20 points. So in other words, you're not going to be perfect in your practice. The main thing that you should be concerned about is showing up every day, or more often than not. All right, put those days of practice together in a row and you'll be in a better place. The next tip I have for you is to take breaks during your practice session. Sometimes people get into a mode where they just want to plow through and play. And you look up and you had the horn in your face for 30 minutes, 45 minutes, for an hour or more. That's not good habits. So you're going to get tired and wear yourself out and potentially have an injury if you practice that way. So instead, play an exercise, take a short break, and then play some more, take another short break, and continue in that way. And before you know it, your practice session would have really come and gone, and you'll be in a better place physically. You would have practiced in such a way that you will build muscle and build endurance, and you won't be at such a high risk for injury. And that brings me to my third tip, which is that the mental side of practice is more important than the physical side of practice. So you might say, hey, Chris, if I'm resting so much during my practice session, what am I doing with all of that time? Well, mental practice goes a long way. You can practice without having the horn to your lips the entire time. So one of my favorite things to do is to finger through a passage and sing it before I play it. That helps me to internalize the music. That's ear training. And I'm working out my mistakes before I have the horn on my face. So you don't want to practice bad habits. You don't want to practice your mistakes because you're learning bad habits. You're learning mistakes. So you work those things out before you actually put the horn to your lips. And then when you finally bring the horn to your lips, it'll be less mistakes and you'll be more successful. The fourth tip I have for you is that listening is practice too. That should be a part of your practice sessions. Now, the question is, what are you listening to exactly? When you're practicing, when you're performing trumpet in your practice session, that takes a certain type of thinking. And let me say that a different way. When you're playing the horn, you should not be in an analytical mode. You should be in performance mode. I'm going to play this to the best of my ability. So then how are you going to listen to yourself and criticize what you've done? You do that through recording. So you should be recording your practice. If not the entire practice, at least a portion of your practice, so that you can go back and listen to the recording and then make notes about what you need to change and how you're going to approach that. All right, so here's an example of what I mean when I'm talking about the mental side of practice. I am going to be looking at this measure here, these two measures right here. Okay, did you see that? These two measures right here. I'm going to show you a couple of different approaches. I'm going to practice without the horn on my face. So one thing that I can do is I can just practice air patterns. So I have an idea of how I want to phrase these two measures, and I'm going to practice it with my air because that's going to affect everything I put into the trumpet. So I'm going to finger it, and I'm going to do the air patterns. So, can you see my vowels? All right, so that's one thing I can do. I can sing it. Do. So, do. Okay, so I can do those kinds of things, and then I'll put the trumpet to my face. Okay, so now that I played a passage, I can listen back to my recording and determine if I liked it, and I can determine what changes I need to make. Now, by doing this, you have built-in rest time on the face, but you're still fully mentally engaged in your practice. What else can you be listening to? I'm going to tell you to listen to the great recordings of the masters. They've already put out excellent examples for us to follow. So get those sounds in your ear so that your body and your ears know what you're working toward. You stand a better chance of reaching that, by the way, the more you listen to the great recordings. I don't want you to have the frame of mind that the greats are the greats and you'll never be as great as them. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. But guess what? I got news for you. You're supposed to play the way you play anyway. What they've done is just a model for us. We're supposed to create new things. We are musicians after all. If you want to continue your learning, go ahead and press or tap the video on the screen, and I'll be there to help you. Thanks a lot.